Hey, we're back. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. That's Derek. I'm Rob. Thanks for hanging with us. Let's hit the like button if we could, my friends. Let's keep the Eagles talk going, D-Gun. All right, let's look at the defense. And, it's an interesting situation that they have because they still have a ton of talent, but there was a lot of turnover. And, you're looking at a new linebacking core. You're looking at new safeties. You're looking at Javon Hargrave departing. You're losing Hargrave, Edwards, Kaiser White, Epps, and there's a lot of new faces stepping in there that have to do the job. All right, so let's look back at the good and the bad from last year. The good, 70 sacks. I mean, most in football by a good amount. They were a pass rushing machine. Now they lose Javon Hargrave, and clearly that's not nothing. That's 11 sacks right there from the defensive tackle position. But still, they bring back Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham and Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox, all guys who had 7 or more sacks. They were, good in terms of points per game. They were 7th in the league at 20.2. That's a good number. Versus the pass, they were number one. Gave up 179.8 in the air. Very good again. Here's where they struggled a little bit, Derek. Versus the run, they were 17th. They gave up 122.6. And they struggled, I think, in general, sort of in the middle of the field, whether it was runs or dumps to the tight end or crossing patterns or those kind of things. That was a bit of a weakness for them. So when you look at that in total, and then you add in the fact that there's, a bunch of new coaches too, what are your expectations for this unit overall?
Well, because there's still so many question marks about the middle of that defense, I wonder how Desai and Patricia shore up the passing game over the middle, which was a glaring weakness for as good as that defense was. That's one area they struggled in. They struggled with tackling. They struggle with coming up and plugging the gaps against the run. So those are some of the things that definitely have to be fixed. Well, here's the thing that I do like. Even though they have such a big influx of new players, you still have enough veteran players there to stabilize things when things are going south. You still have Fletcher Cox there, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. You still have Darius Slay. You still have James Bradbury. You have enough veteran presence there to calm the players down and get them back on the right track because of what they were able to accomplish last year. They understand it's not going to be perfect all the time, but it doesn't have to be. Some of the better teams in the history of pro football, they didn't have dominant defenses. They had defense good enough to get off the field at strategic times to get the ball back to the offense to put even more pressure on the opposition. So that's what I expect. I expect that pass rush on defense to be pretty doggone good. We don't know if it's going to equal the numbers of what they achieved last year, but still, with the speed I just talked about and the presence they have there and the influx of what we consider right now on paper quality additions by way of the draft, and holdovers from last year, I expect that defensive front to be pretty good. But those other areas, and especially in the back end of the defense, the communications, even though Terrell Edmonds is a proven veteran, you still have to get on the same page communication-wise with your cornerbacks and a young player, whether it's Reed Blankenship or Sidney Brown or whoever playing next to you. That's going to take some time. So I expect this defense to be good. How good? That's a huge question mark that we continue to ask leading up until probably 4 or 5 games into the season.
That's it. Time. Patience. It's going to take a little while. I think they're going to get there, but they're not going to be where I would guess Eagles fans want them to be right away. I think it's going to take a little while. I think it's going to take a while for some of these guys to adjust. It's only natural. The game's going to be going really fast for the rookies and the guys who didn't play a ton last year. There's only so much a veteran can do in terms of trying to impart certain kinds of wisdom. But you do have good advantages because the positions where you have inexperienced are pretty interspliced with vets.
Yes.
You have Fletcher Cox, you have Milton Williams, you have Brandon Graham, you have Josh Sweat along that defensive line to go with some of the other younger guys. Your corners are very veteran guys, right? And the thing with Edmonds is new to the Eagles, but he's been around for a while in the NFL. So I think he can help Reed Blankenship along the way, Sidney Brown, whatever that ends up looking like. You're pretty good at corner with Slay, Bradbury, and Avonte Maddox if he can stay healthy, which is a big if. And then the linebackers, Morrow's at least been around. And, we're going to see how quickly Nakobe Dean and how much last year, getting a little bit of time helped him. I just think that's really all it is more than anything else. I have pretty good faith that Jalen Carter can play, that Nolan Smith can play, that Kobe Dean can play. It's just a matter of how quickly can they be ready to play at this level. Yeah.
There's no question about it. It just doesn't all come together in training camp. People think what they see in training camps or what you're going to see in the regular season. No. When the bullets start flying for real, the speed is increased twofold compared to what you see in training camp. And even when you have those limited practice sessions with other teams and preseason games, you're not playing your regulars together. There's a feel that has to be achieved at a certain point. And it may not happen the first two games. It may look good because of the opponents you're playing against, or not the top-notch opponents, but it's not going to be where you want it to be for at least 3 or 4 weeks into a season.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
No, listen, I agree. And the other part of this is, let's face it, that defense last year benefited from playing lesser teams and lesser quarterbacks. This defense, unless there's injuries, won't have that same advantage. They're going to be playing against a harder, level of player here and quarterback. I mean, if you just go to the schedule, okay, so you start off week 1. I don't know what it's really going to look like with Mac Jones yet, but I would assume it's going to be better than last year with Bill O'Brien there. But that one's not, a juggernaut. For whatever people think about Kirk Cousins, and the Eagles did a great job on him last year, but Kirk Cousins is a very good regular season quarterback.
Yes.
And he's got Justin Jefferson. So you get them week 2. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. Generally what you get out of him early is the best of Baker Mayfield.
Yes. And they're playing him early. Yes.
Week 3. Yeah. We don't know yet about Sam Howell. With the Rams, you have a very smart offensive coach in McVay. If Stafford's healthy and Kupp is healthy, that's not an easy, duo to deal with, right? Then the next week you get Aaron Rodgers. The week after that you get Tua. Yeah, then it's Washington again, but then you start getting Dak Prescott, who's had a lot of success against you. You get Pat Mahomes, you get Josh Allen, San Fran, Dallas again, Geno, New York, you get the gist. Like, this is it's a lot more difficult than it was last year, for sure.
And you're playing teams that have much better defenses.
Yeah.
Than the collection you had last year as well. So, and I saw a short clip from this morning's practice where Nick Sirianni started yelling at the players again about, this is not perfect. You can't wait until the regular season for it to be perfect. It has to be perfect now.
Yeah.
So, he's putting pressure on these guys. Hey, look, we got to get this thing right now. Right. He understands the task at hand. Mm-hmm. You don't overlook anybody. You say, "Oh, we're playing Mac Jones." You're playing Bill Belichick's defense also.
Yes.
Bill Belichick had one of the best defenses in the National Football League last year. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay, as bad as they were offensively, were a good defensive team last year. So you got to counter all that stuff. Yeah. The more pressure you can put on teams early and keep those defenses on the field longer, the easier it makes for your overall day at the office.
Great point.
And Sirianni understands this.
Yeah.
No matter what we're saying on the outside looking in about, man, we expect this offense to be rolling. We expect this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? The task gets a little bit harder because the caliber of defenses you're going to be facing this year as well. We keep talking about the quarterbacks they're facing. We overlook the collection of defenses they're playing from this year. Buffalo, San Francisco. And I don't want to hear about, we smoked San Francisco's defense. It was a lopsided game, and rightfully so, because you had no offense once your 2 quarterbacks went down.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You did what you had to do. You took advantage of a wounded animal, and rightfully so. But now you don't know what's going to happen this year.
No, you're right. And that is a great point too. The Eagles offense was able to get up on teams and force them to be in passing situations, right? Where even though the Eagles weren't good against the run, most of the time it didn't really matter because those other teams had to throw all the time. And that allowed the Eagles to tee off and get the 70 sacks.
Right.
Are you going to be able to jump on these teams like you did last year and force other teams' offenses into predictable, series and plays and downs? That's the thing. We don't know that either, Derek. It's not like if last year some of those bad teams were down, 21 points in the third quarter, they weren't going to try and run the ball. You knew what they were doing, and the Eagles could pin their ears back and just get after them.
Absolutely.
We don't know what that's going to look like.
And you had a lot of skittish quarterbacks, man, that didn't know what they were looking at across the line of scrimmage.
That's for sure.
There's a number of quarterbacks. You're not going to fool these guys, some of these guys this year.
Yeah.
You got, matter of fact, you're playing against some of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league this year.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get Mahomes. You're going to get Kirk Cousins. Josh Allen. Geno, Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, you're getting guys who are paid, guys who are looking to get paid, like Tua. Dak Prescott's paid very highly.
Yes.
Yeah. Daniel Jones got a big raise. So there's a lot of competition here. One of the things that Desai kept emphasizing was physicality.
Yeah.
He mentioned it over and over again. We want to be physical. We want to be more physical than we were last year. I don't know that the Eagles, did they strike you as a finesse team last year?
No,
me either.
They were, let's put it like this. They were physical up front.
Right.
Now, once you got past their front, it was a little suspect, especially in the tackling department.
Right. Yeah.
But they were physical up front from start to finish last year.
Yeah.
You get all 11 guys on the pay. And plus, Bradbury and Slay could play the press well when they had the opportunities. The problem is that Jonathan Gannon had too much respect for receivers and allowed them to catch a lot of underneath stuff. I always say I want to see the corners be able to get up and knock receivers off routes. Now, there's some receivers you're going to face. You're not knocking DK Metcalf off his routes.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Stephon Gilmore, guys like that, Justin Jefferson. The problem with the Vikings last year was their offensive line. So I want to see these cornerbacks play a little bit more press coverage instead of giving up all this underneath stuff that was going on a season ago.
Yeah.
If Matt Patricia implements some of the mindset that a Bill Belichick defense is, you won't see all of this 7 to 10 yard cushion stuff.
Right.
You're gonna see them force a quarterback to pat the ball a second longer, which hopefully allows that front to get home. But I really don't know what to expect from Sean Desai. I really don't.
I don't either. And that's, part of what makes figuring out this defense harder. Because if you're looking at the offense, A, most of the personnel is back, and B, Brian Johnson was already here in-house, and he knows the quarterback well. So you figure there's not going to be a big transition there. At least you wouldn't think so. But there's no question about it. With this defense, it's going to look a lot different. And, Sean Desai, even though, look, this not giving up big plays thing is an organizational philosophy more than it was even Jonathan Gannon. So you're still going to see that same implementation, that same philosophy, right? So you're going to see that. But I think more than anything else, what are the twists? Is he going to blitz a little bit more? Will he go in press coverage a little bit more? Will there be a little bit more risk taking? Let's face it, the Eagles were conservative last year. And maybe they were conservative for a reason. They felt like they could trust certain guys on an island or whatever. Tone brings up they were some poor tackling. I agree with that.
It's true.
So what is it that's going to distinguish Desai from Gannon from what we've seen the last couple of years is the question. And it's hard to answer that. Like, he can say, we got to get more physical. What defensive coordinator doesn't? What is defense?
Exactly.
So what exactly are you implementing to get the best out of these guys? And how are you getting them up to speed fast without a ton of practice time, just by nature of the way things are now?
And I think the biggest dilemma in today's football under this collective bargaining agreement is, you can harp all you want about getting physical, but guess what? Teams that got physical practice it over and over in practice.
Yeah.
The practice sessions are so limited. The coaches put an extreme a collar on how much you can hit because of the fear of players getting injured.
Yep.
So you really can't really practice it. You can practice form in a walkthrough session.
Right.
We're going to practice form tackling. Here's where your head needs to be. Here's where your arms need to be. But that doesn't translate into what's going to happen during a game. Yeah. And this is across the board. I see too many guys, especially DBs, they try to come up and lay a shoulder into a ball carrier more so than wrapping up. And more than 50% of the time, the ball carrier bounces right off the would-be tackler because you're not sticking an arm out trying to trip them up.
Yeah.
I think that's most important. You got to teach these guys. Get your arms around the lower torso of a ball carrier, period. Now, when you try to tackle a guy like Derrick Henry, you're making a business decision.
Yeah.
But for the most part, anybody else, get your arms around these guys. Get your head in the proper position. Don't just try to roll tackle. Don't try to throw a shoulder into them and knock them off the feet. You might knock them off balance, but you're not necessarily knocking them off their feet. These guys are too strong nowadays.
I wonder too, just, thinking about it. And we discussed this a little bit yesterday, but, JM brings up Matt Patricia. I wonder what, other than, is he more than just a consultant? Is he a guy that Sirianni and or Desai can just sort of bounce things off of, or is there more to this? Is he more hands-on? That's the tough thing. I'd love to see what's going on there at practice to get a handle of how involved, in the fundamental stuff, whether it's tackling or play calling or whatever. I don't know what his role. I wonder if he's going to be upstairs in a booth. Is he going to be on the sideline once it gets real? I'm curious what his role is going to be, because look, before he went to Detroit, that was a disaster. And before he was, thrown to being a co-offensive coordinator, which was just done by Belichick, he was a good defensive coordinator.
Yes.
But we don't, I don't know what shape that takes. Like, why would he leave New England and come here? Did he feel like he wasn't going to have enough say over there? That's something that I'm not sure about.
I think the one distinct advantage the Eagles have going into their first game of the season is that Patricia knows Bill Belichick's defensive mindset as well as anybody in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And he can tell these guys, hey, when they align like this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to try to do. That's a huge advantage beyond just personnel. We agree the Eagles have on paper superior personnel compared to New England. But there's a reason why New England is consistently one of the better defenses in the National Football League, because their concepts never change. They have a coach who beats it into their head over and over again. And they go out and get a certain type of player. It may not be a marquee name, but they find a certain type of player to fit the scheme that they want to implement. Mm-hmm. Having Patricia for that game, especially it's on the road in hostile environment, Tom Brady night, you're opening the season against, there's a whole lot of hype surrounding that game that this Eagles team is going to have to confront going into that New England stadium. And to have somebody like Patricia who knows exactly what Bill Belichick likes to do in a chess match, that is huge for that first game of the season for this team to get off on the right foot.
No, you're right. And that's the thing. That's a real big advantage, that first game, to have him there. Oh my gosh, is that huge, right? So beyond that, let me just jump off to the offense for a couple things here. Devontae Smith talked about what he wanted in terms of what he was looking for this year in terms of goals. He said, quote, "I always want to better myself. There's always room for improvement. You can never just sit there and think it's good enough. You can always get better. Doing the things that I've been doing and doing them at a high level, just doing it faster." Yeah. And he also said that I'm not – the contract thing will take care of itself. I'm going to go out there and play. So he's got a good outlook on that.
There you go.
Yeah, and apparently, according to Tim McManus of ESPN.com, he said that tweeted out that DeAndre Swift was the real crowd pleaser today, elicited some oohs from the fans when he scampered into open space along the left sideline, got an okay Swift later in practice following a shifty run to the second level. I think Eagles fans are poised to fall in love with him because of the kind of game that he has. And he's from Philadelphia. He's a local kid, St. Joe's Prep and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's going to be the darling, I think, offensively for the newer guys.
DeAndre Swift can be a game breaker. There's no question about that, And like I said, I always love, as much as running back has always been and always will be my favorite position of any position on a football team. I love the guy, the scat back. Historically, I love the type of running backs like the Dalvin Cooks, the Gale Sayers, the Barry Sanders, the DeAndre Swifts, who can get out in open space and make a guy miss, shake, rattle, and roll and make you miss. And DeAndre Swift has all those capabilities. Every time he carries a football, though, you just have to cross your fingers that he's going to get up based on his history in the NFL. Hopefully he can get out from under that. Hopefully with the depth that they have at running back, too much is not going to be asked of him, in that regard. I'd say get him out in open space, more sweeps to the outside. Let him pick his hole. Hit him with screens more. Hit him on a couple of wheel routes going down the field as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where he's the most effective. Hitch passes to him as well. Let him work. Let him shake, rattle, and roll out in open space more so than the congestion between the tackles.
Yep. Yeah, he's got that innate anywhere on the field, break a long one kind of ability here. And I think it's going to be great contrasting the power of Rashard Penny. I think having those two, that 1-2 dynamic, I wonder if we'll see a situation where they're both in the backfield at the same time too. That would be cool.
Surprised. At least two of the four at the same time. We keep talking about Penny and Swift, and we keep, and I'm just saying in general, we keep overlooking Gainwell and look at what Gainwell gave, to this offense last year, both as a runner and a pass catcher. Gainwell's a quality running back as well.
Yeah.
We keep talking about these other two guys, and rightfully so because of their pedigree. But, it's a great problem for Sirianni and Brian Johnson to have. Which one do I go to?
Exactly.
Even Boston Scott. I mean, which one do I go to?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. All right, let's come back. And as I mentioned, we've been doing our greatest series here, and now the camp's underway. We wrote it all the way to Friday, and today we do the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, who are our top 10 Philadelphia Eagles of all time. We will do that when we come back. You don't want to miss that. So coming up, we'll have Scott Lauber a little bit later. We'll talk some Phillies, our NFL segment, the whole nine. All right. I want to tell you right now about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group are the place that you turn to, for me at least, if you need someone you can trust to help you with your hard-earned cash, hard-earned money that you have made over the years to invest wisely to take care of your future. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you want to need some help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I know personally, I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim. I couldn't be any happier. And it was a smooth transition. It's a lot when you're trying to figure out how to do, what to do, get in touch with your old HR from wherever you left, all those kind of things. Jim walks you through and he's right there with you the entire time. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him, Murray, Murray, .jim@principal.com. That's Murray,